Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf has announced she's running for re-election for 2018, and she put out a website with her priorities: holistic community safety, keeping the Oakland promise, transportation infrastructure that works, fighting displacement and housing our most vulnerable, responsive and trustworthy government. Now, I support Libby's running for re-election, but I have serious reservations. And my reservations in some cases are so great that I'm considering a run myself. Now, here is what Libby has done right. When she started off her campaign, she announced that the focus would be Made in Oakland. And there was actually a brand called Made in Oakland, which I don't see here right now. And then somewhere in the middle, like mid-year last year, she just stopped that. And it was the one approach that made people want to latch on to her message who didn't know her, and made people want to stick with her who had known her for a long, long time, like me. Now, what happened after that was that Libby seemed to become, for want of a better term, unmoored. And that is, in all cases, she was behind a problem rather than ahead of it. And it doesn't matter if it's giant issues like, for example, the fires, or smaller issues like, for example, garbage and waste cleanup, or issues like that aren't being talked about, economic development. The overall view that I have of Libby now is that she doesn't understand how to build cities, that she's lost what it means to maintain, let alone what the soul of Oakland is, and is too easily able to allow herself to be pulled by the winds of change, rather than understanding that as the mayor of Oakland, in a number of cases, she has to serve as the breakwater to the waves of change to protect Oakland's most vulnerable citizens. So, because of that, Libby has failed more than she has succeeded as mayor. And the campaign promises, or the campaign, I should say, arguments she's laid out, or objectives, excuse me, exhibit a continuation of this problem. We have a gigantic issue that goes beyond affordable housing. And it is an identity crisis. Some say that Oakland has lost its soul. A number of people, and it pains me to say this, believe that Libby has turned her back on the black community. That's not the Libby that I know, but the problem is that the mayor and the council as a whole has to realize that Oakland, in its cultural background and its current design, is very much a black city. I am just outside of Atlanta. Atlanta makes no apologies for having a black culture, but Oakland has more often than not made apologies for being black. If it has to do with, for example, the presentation of rap parties or concerts, or the supporting of black businesses, I can go in a number of directions and offer a number of different examples. Oakland seems fearful of developing a cultural economic plan that not only addresses the needs of African Americans, but Latino Americans, Italian Americans, Jewish Americans, Vietnamese Americans, and so on. The realization, which we've always known in Oakland historically, that we're all different, but it's fun learning our differences. I remember, to digress for a moment, going to a party just off 35th Avenue on the way to Wedgwood Road in the Laurel District of Oakland, This was years ago. And there was a Colombian dance troupe doing their awesome presentation in the middle of the living room. It was very impromptu. It wasn't formal at all. Copious amounts of wine were consumed. But that's Oakland. You'll visit someone's home for the first time, or the second, and you may meet someone else who comes from a background you're completely foreign to, and you learn something. But you acknowledge that person is different from you. Oakland, and Libby has been a part of this, has been called by some the Brooklyn of the Bay Area. Folks, Brooklyn is a borough within New York City. Oakland is a separate city from San Francisco. We've always wanted to be. Or as the famed former council member Leo Bazile said, Oakland is the town. Everybody calls San Francisco the city, but Oakland is the town. That means Oakland is the place where you come to be yourself, let your guard down, and let it all hang out. Instead, Oakland has become a focus for racial profiling, for racism, and for economic segregation, and I might add, economic injustice on a scale we have not seen before. These are little yet insidious actions that are exacted upon some of our finest Oaklanders on a daily basis. And they contribute to making life a little less fun in the city at a time when it should be more fun than ever. And Libby contributes to that. She doesn't do so intentionally because she doesn't know better. But when faced with these challenges, rather than accepting the challenge head on, forming a task force, and launching a plan to address it, she becomes defensive. It's always what we did. It's not what you and I are going to do. It's not, here's how you can help me, and here's the cabinet I want you on. She's not putting you to work. She'll consult you, but she will not take your advice and implement it. And then if she does, it has to come 1,000% from her, and you're not involved. And I'm speaking from my personal experience. Okay. So if you do that, if you have that dynamic, it's difficult to have the same set of people who were with you the first time be with you the second time, because they expect you to call on them. And I don't care what anyone says, that is a fact of life. The persons criticizing what I'm saying have never, ever been involved in politics. They've sat on the sidelines and observed, but they have never been involved, worked in a mayor's office, worked on a campaign, let alone run for office. They have never truly been political people. It's easy to say anything when you don't have a fingertip feel for how something works that you are observing. When you have a fingertip feel for how something works that you've been involved in, your opinion is completely different. Libby lists in her priorities a set of objectives that are completely out of touch, almost completely out of touch to be fair, with Oakland's problems. Oakland's number one problem is lack of economic development. Now at that you would chuckle, but I want you to think about it. 10 years ago, if I said to you, or rather you asked me, where would you go as a small business owner, particularly black, Latino, minority, or a woman, for assistance, I would say go to the Oakland Business Development Center. It used to be run by a guy named Arnold Bella, a nonprofit that was basically controlled by the city. That's gone. And if you go to the city website associated with this concern, you find that we've basically seceded our business development operation to a startup called Kiva for microloans. And that's it. No one really to talk to. It's not really an Oakland-based business so much as it is a startup that could be bought out, therefore its mission is changed, or focus on more than one city, and therefore Oakland doesn't receive the unique attention it deserves. That's not business development in a city. That's not the way it works. It might sound cool to say, oh, I'm tech-oriented, and therefore, because I'm tech-oriented, or to show you that I'm tech-oriented, I'm going to mention Kiva, but it doesn't solve the objective of true business development. And that's one subset of the even larger problem of not having an economic development program. When the mayor, let alone the council, deals with sports organizations like the Raiders or the A's or the Warriors, it's not the business, it's the personality. And in the case of the Raiders, it's Mark Davis. Or in the case of the A's, it's Dave Cavell, the president. In the case of the Warriors, it's Joe Lacob and Peter Guber, but it's not the organization. And in part 2 of my video, I'm going to explain how this is exemplary of a larger problem, how Mayor Schaaf doesn't understand economic development. Stay tuned.